111, held today, the 1st of September, via Microsoft Teams. Members, we do have an agenda that has been proposed for this particular meeting. And in terms of the agenda, we've got one item that is open for the open session, or rather the one item that is on our agenda for the open session. May I, by a show of hands, get an indication that you do adopt the agenda as presented? Thank you, Ms. Maseti. Thank you, Mr. Mkize. And before we proceed with that item, let me introduce the members of the REC. I'll start with myself. My name is Nomalanga Stole. I'm the REC chairperson and as well as the CEO of NESA. And I sit on a number of committees and subcommittees of the Energy Regulator. And with me, I've got two members, starting with Ms. Maseti, who is the member of this particular committee, and also she is the chair of the pipe gas subcommittee, and as well as the electricity subcommittee. She sits on other committees and subcommittees of the energy regulator. Ms. Maseti, may I ask you to greet those that have joined us for this meeting?
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning to you, Mr. Mkize, and everyone on the call. And I would like to also greet the stakeholders that are following today's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Maseti. And I'll move on to the next member of this particular committee, Mr. Muzivukile Mkize, who is the member of this committee, a chairperson of the Petroleum Pipeline Subcommittee, and a member of a number of other subcommittees and committees of the Energy Regulator. Mr. Mkize, would you want to greet all those that have joined us on this platform?
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, Madam Maseti, NERSA management and staff, as well as the members of the public that are following us through the various live streaming platforms. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mkize. May I also indicate to everyone who has joined us for this meeting that our meeting is recorded in line with the relevant pieces of legislation that requires us to do so. On that note, we do have one agenda item as advertised for this particular meeting, and the item that is open for our meeting this morning is the evaluation of the Shell Downstream South Africa Pty Limited on its audited regulatory financial reports for its petroleum facilities for the 2020-24 financial year. I don't know if I should go straight to Ms. Makopela to just take members through this particular item. Ms. Makopela.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members and colleagues. The purpose of this submission is to request the REC to note Shell Downstream South Africa RFRs for the period 1st January 2024 to 31st December 2024 for its 6 storage facilities. In terms of the delegation metrics approved by the Energy Regulator, the REC is mandated to note the evaluation of the annual the audited RFRs. The analysis of the financial performance and financial position of SDA-SA's petroleum storage facilities reflects that the facilities are profitable and financially stable. The profitability ratios for these facilities show improvement and other steady, which indicates that it is still can generate profit and gets adequate returns on its assets and equity. The liquidity ratio for the storage facilities still meets the general norm of 2:1, indicating that SDA-SA meets the short-term obligations through the current assets. And in terms of efficiency, recoverables are recovered on time for the petroleum storage facilities, and assets are also utilized efficiently, although Shell Downstream South Africa should still improve utilization of the assets to generate revenue for all facilities. It is recommended that the REC notes SDASA's RFRs for the period 1st January 2024 to 31st December 2024. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Makopola. Members, any questions, issues of clarity, or points of enhancements in relation to this particular submission? And if you have any, please do raise your hand and make your contributions. Thank you. I see a hand from Ms. Maseti. You may come in, ma'am.
Thank you, Chairperson. Just two things from my side. There's issues of just clarification on the issue of work under construction. I see that here it is not properly clarified. Yes, they do deal with construction work in progress. And then talking about plans to keep the work in progress separately, but they are not stating how and all of that. They're just referring to the person who's the finance advisor, that she confirmed that there is a process in place to isolate costs relating to construction work in progress. So I just want to understand that, because I think that is important to make sure that work under construction is not included in the RAP, and it does not it's not capitalized as the customers are not benefiting from that at this stage, so it's not supposed to be included in the RAP. But there are 2 or 3 places where this is appearing, and it appears to be repetition. Although I think it should have been combined and clarified properly when we deal with procedures under 6A and B, where we deal with work under construction. And I think the team somewhere, it also confuses it, talking about isolation of cost to, costs relating to constructive work in progress and all of that. I think they need to just be clear on this thing and write it properly so that we all understand what they are talking about here. So if this is work under construction, and the fact that it needs to be separated and not be included in the RAP, let it be like that. And what exactly is being used to make sure that any costs relating to work under construction is not included. So they must put this properly, but again, clarify how this is done rather than to give us the answers that they are providing here. There are also dates here that they've provided. If they can just check that part, I will appreciate it if they can clarify for me. Then the other thing that I would like to understand, and again, it appears in 2 or so areas, is it relates to adjustments in the RAP. But the question that the team looked at is whether the assets were acquired, they included premium. Not sure what they were really seeking to do here when they're talking about the premium that was paid or not paid. What exactly is it that they are trying to establish here regarding a premium? I mean, if there's any adjustment in the RAP and therefore you want sort of to start at a particular balance of the RAP, let us be clear on that. I could not understand this issue of the assets that were acquired, which had a premium to be paid or not. And if they've done any inspections so that they record the assets accurately in the asset register, then let that be clear then, because they do touch on the inspections. So I am not sure whether there were inspections to ascertain the assets that are appropriate, and those assets that will be in the asset register, so that then those will then be your starting asset, regulated asset base. If they can just also just clarify that, because it seems they are dealing with one person, the financial advisor of this company, where they asking questions, but their questions are not clear and are not put properly, and even the articulation here to really understand maybe the adjustments on the RAB, so that we know what is the starting value of the RAB, from the time that we then do the cost allocation manual. And then lastly, Chairperson, is on the issue of indirect as well as the overhead cost that were allocated and capitalized. I don't know, they say to constructive work in progress. I just don't understand this. Honestly, it needs to be rephrased properly here. So if this has to do with the allocation, clear identification, first of all, the accurate identification of the overhead cost that are going to be admitted and acknowledged in the cost allocation manual. Is that the case? Are we trying to identify those overhead costs that are relevant and appropriate and that deserve to be in the cost allocation manual? And then now we can't just put a forward slash and say indirect cost. What are the indirect costs that we are referring to here? Because your overhead costs are different from these other indirect costs, or what exactly are we saying? Because we can't just approve this, especially dealing with the cost allocation manuals where cost needs to be accurately identified and assigned accurately. So now if they themselves don't know what they are referring to, they just talk indirect or overhead cost, and then they then talk about confirming through inspection that the costs are allocated and capitalized to constructive work in progress. This does not make sense. Can they clarify those three things for me? So that at least we approve something that we understand and we know what the cost implications are going to be, because the cost allocation manual, we're not going to have another opportunity. When we deal with the tariffs, we need to deal with the cost as we have identified them accurately and that they are assigned appropriately, and we know exactly what those costs are. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Masetti. I think from my side, I have just one clarity that is not very clear. It's on paragraph 6.33 on page 9, where we are saying that the ratios for the storage facilities have improved when comparing the 2023 and 24 financial years. However, except for the 4 facilities in Kronstadt, Mossel Bay, Polokwane, and Witbank, where there is an indication of a decrease when the 2 years are compared. And we then are also indicating that the decrease is due to the increase in the current liabilities of the licensees and of the licensee rather, and that the licensee is relying more on debt funding in terms of its business. And we proceed as well to say that based on this, the financial ratio indicates that the licensee will not be able to pay its short-term obligation as they become due and payable. However, the last part we then say, even if this was the case, the licensee's current ratio is still within a sustainable level, which means that they can meet its short-term obligation. So that paragraph for me, it's really not clear, and also to a certain extent contradicting what is being said in earlier sentences. And if it can be clarified for me, I'll appreciate it. Over to you, Ms. Mahopela, or any of your team members that is in the meeting that can assist in clarifying issues that have been raised by members. I do see Ms. Boko's hand is up. I don't know if I should take her first, and then you can come in. Ms. Boko, you can come in, and then Ms. Mahopela will also come in if there's a need to. Over to you, Ms. Boko.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and good morning. Chair, I'll try to clarify the matters and then request Ms. Mahopela as the initiator to also add if need be, and also assist with the question on the improved ratios from your side, Chair. Thanks. Just to maybe bring some clarity, Chair, this is the document before the members is actually the audited RFRs, and what members, especially Member Masete, was looking at is the agreed upon procedures. So this includes, it talks to the instructions that we as a team had given to the auditors, like in terms of auditing the regulatory financial statements. First question regarding clarity on construction work and in progress. So, members, there is a requirement in terms of our methodologies that construction work in progress be not included into the regulatory asset base. So, in terms of those procedures, what we were requesting the auditors to check and ascertain and confirm is that they would get the details of the construction work in progress from Shell. And then, having gotten that, they needed to confirm that none of those expenditures is included into the REP. So that it was the intention with this construction work in progress. For the second question regarding adjustments in REP, with that procedure, members, we needed to ensure that in the actual REP reported in the RFRs, there is no addition of premiums. And with regards to allocation of indirect costs, we needed auditors to also confirm that even in the allocated indirect costs that comes into the RFRs, there's no inclusion of anything that talks to construction work in progress. So I do also want to emphasize that before the audit takes place, we also sit with auditors, and a lot of these procedures are tweaked to a point where both the auditors and us understand what needs to be done. So the language does change, but then what we always have to make sure happens is that it doesn't change the essence of what we need to do. So yeah, members, I just wanted to clarify those three things, and Ms. Mahopela may then come in to add and also talk to the last question from the CEO. Thanks, members.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Thank you. Yes, sorry. In terms of Ms. Sitole's question, Chairperson, paragraph 6.34, whereby we are indicating that there is a decrease. We're just indicating that in the general norm, we expect that 2:1 we consider it as acceptable, but then we are comparing 2023 to 2024. So we are saying that on other facilities, there is a decrease, although there is a decrease, of the current ratio, although even if there's a decrease on the current ratios, it's still within the norm, it's still within the acceptable norm, although it's decreasing. Thank you.
Okay, I think maybe we, on the last point, the paragraph may be improved in terms of how you've explained it. Ms. Massetti, are you covered in terms of the points that you've raised?
Chairperson, I'm partly covered. I accept the explanation from Ms. Boko, but then I think I'm quite clear about the procedures that they wanted the auditors to verify. The issue is that in the way that they are presenting, and to clarify for us in terms of the responses and the opinions and findings of the auditors, it's important for the questions that I've asked for them to specify, for instance, the work under construction that is those assets that are not ready and they're still under construction, and therefore that they're not included, so that we know. And then the other thing that I've mentioned are those that are discontinued, that they've mentioned, as well as the mothballed assets, of which they are not supposed to be part of the RAP. So they are not stating which ones, if there are any of those, so that at least when we read, because we also read the background document and what are the outcomes of what they have asked from the auditors, then read their report in terms of analyzing the findings. So that is not what is explained. So that's where I needed at least to get clarity. If they can just clarify those ones for me, because really the questions were around those. And the other thing is that what I've indicated is when they ask questions that seem to conflict two different things. If they are talking about any indirect costs, they must tell us about those indirect costs that the auditors found then, and therefore made sure that they would not be included, so that they don't talk indirect cost as if indirect costs are the same as overhead cost. So if there are certain overhead costs that are not supposed to be included, they must then state to us that what the findings are. So those are the things that they are not responding directly to. Thank you. Thanks, Chairperson.
Thank you, Ms. Massetti. Ms. Boko, I don't know if you want to augment your response, but I think from my side, what I was just going to say we should do as a point of enhancement is that when we write, let's just not assume that everyone is on the same page as yourselves as writers. Just write on the basis that the reader may not have some of the background that you have. And I think with that writing in mind, it will minimize some of the questions that we are asking as members. So I don't know if you want to come in, but that was going to be my guidance. And I also saw Mr. Unketi's hand was up. I did not want to stop you from coming, but I just wanted to say, let me highlight this point, which is critical. How we write, it's maybe different, but let's write on the assumption that a reader does not have the background that you have. So give everything and in your submission to minimize some of the issues that are being raised. Do you want to come in, Ms. Boko?
No, thank you, Chairperson. I'm guided by what you have indicated. I think what made us sound like we are generalizing is that these RFRs are for 8 separately licensed facilities. So we will avoid that and also be clear, talk to what assets exactly we are referring to, and avoid convoluting matters. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, but do note the notes of the points of improvement raised by Ms. Massetti in terms of how we should write. Mr. Untit, your hand was up as well.
Morning, Chair and members and colleagues. Now, I think your guidance is taken and how we write it, because I think the terminology of construction and whether it be maintenance or requiring triggering a license. So there's no active construction in terms of construction license happening, but more upgrades. But they have been notifying us. But I think we take your guidance and how the terminology is used and the writing, as you indicated, we will then consultation with PPT address.
Thank you for that. And just to emphasize the point as well, is that right such that we assume that the reader has no background information on what you're writing about, and that will make it easy for any reader, and as well as the fact that should there be a need to discover some of these documents, and it is easy for the next person that is not part of our meeting to read and be able to understand. Members, on that note, the submission was for noting, and with those points of enhancements that have been given to the team, the recommendations are on, I'm just trying to get to the submission cover. Or Ms. Mahopela, you can just assist me because I was all over the submission and trying to raise some of the points that I wanted. Oh, I've got it. The recommendation is on page 11 of 127, and the recommendation are that the REC notes SDSA's regulatory financial report for the period 1 January 2024 to 31 December 2024 submitted in compliance with the requirements of the Regulatory Reporting Manual Volume 1. Members, by show of hand, can I get an indication that you do support the noting of this particular submission? Thank you, Ms. Masetti. I do support. Thank you, Mr. Mkize. The submission is noted, and that was the only item we have for our open session. Let me thank the members of management and support staff in assisting the committee to go through this particular submission and reach the required recommendation, which is noting the submission, and trust that the points raised will also be taken into account by the team. On that note, we have come to an end of the open session. We are going to be proceeding with our meeting in considering items that needs to be considered in the closed session. Ms. Maputa, if you can assist and let me know once the streaming has been closed. But before you do that, let me thank everyone that have joined us for this particular meeting, and also to wish them a blessed day. Over to you.